But to your question, we get a lot of that. When is the earliest you should talk to a lawyer? And oftentimes the problem that we face is that we get a lawyer involved in our problems a little too late. And I understand that it's an expensive process and it's a scary process to get a lawyer involved. And people don't like talking to lawyers. I don't know why they're afraid of lawyers, as if they're going to judge them or critique them or hold things that they say against them. That's absolutely not the case. I mean, the least judgy people in the world are attorneys, because we see every spectrum of life. We see every walk of life, and we have our own problems. And there's no good or bad, right or wrong. We're simply advocates for people who hire us. We're good listeners for people who have come to us with problems. And I rarely ever am in a situation where I won't be able to at least give a little bit of advice, a little bit of help, and that's what we want to do here. That's why we do the radio show, because I can't get to everybody in my law practice. I can't help everybody that comes to me for help. I try. For example, on the drive-in to the show, sometimes as a lawyer, you're the only lawyer that a lot of people that you meet in life will know or be comfortable talking to. And again, like we go back to, it's very difficult talking to a lawyer, but oftentimes we are sought out for just questions that maybe it may not be our expertise, but because we have that background and that part of that legal thinking, we can help address some of these situations. So just coming into the office, into the radio station today to do this show, I got a call from an acquaintance of mine, someone who I worked with before in the past and helped me out with home projects, household projects, and he asked me a question about his legal problem that he has in his life right now. And it's one of those things where you might not have the very specific answer that they want or need right then, but you can give them advice and you can kind of like guide them along the way. And that's great. That's great that when they can just call you and ask you, hey, look, what do I do in this situation? You're not going to be able to go into court with them or sit down and draft pleadings for them, but you can give them enough help that they understand where they are, where they're in now. And here's the great thing. I think it helped alleviate a little bit of the problem, because he wanted to just go in there and solve the problem himself. A lot of people are problem solvers. They want to go in there and they want to just bully, like a bull in a china shop, and bully people and try and solve their own problems. And that's great. I like people who take the initiative and try and solve problems themselves. But when it comes to delicate matters where you probably are thinking that you need a lawyer, you want to take a little bit of back up, think about it a little bit before you jump into the situation, and just handle the problem yourself, because the worst thing you can do is make the situation worse by putting people on the edge and by your actions. So, but to your question, what is the earliest that someone should get a lawyer involved in this situation? As early as you identify that there's going to be a legal problem. As soon as you understand that there could be a legal problem, you want to get a lawyer involved. You want to talk to them. You want to see what their perspective is. And if they're a good lawyer and they understand what the situation is, and that you're in, probably by the time you go seek a lawyer, you're probably already in a problem. I mean, you already probably have something going on. They can guide you. They can give you a sense of perspective, and they're not going to charge you for talking to you about what your options are. And so as early as you can possibly get a lawyer involved, get that lawyer involved. In a criminal sense, as soon as you are being investigated, if you get a call from the police, if you get a call from the investigator, it's probably well into the realm of being significantly down a path of the criminal process, that you want to get a lawyer involved. Because certainly by the time law enforcement comes to you and reads your rights, they're telling you that you are a suspect of something, right?
So before you meet with the police or a detective, you should consult a lawyer already.
Absolutely. Absolutely, you should consult with a lawyer. I mean, the police aren't calling you down to the police department because they suspect you of being innocent. They suspect you of being guilty of something. They think that you've already done something. Otherwise, they wouldn't be questioning you. Now, you might not always be the target. You might not always be the main suspect, but you probably have some information. I'm not trying to discourage you from cooperating with the police, because if you were just an innocent bystander and you happen to see something or witness something, then sure. But we all know, I mean, we're talking about people who know that they were involved in something. You know, when you say, hey, how early in the criminal process should I get a lawyer involved? You're talking to people who something's happened in their life where they know that they are being targeted by law enforcement. We're not talking about just the casual person walking down the street and happens to see a masked man running out of a bank. We're talking about an individual, in your question, we're talking about an individual who realizes that they have some liability out there. And if you've got some liability out there, you want to be able to get a lawyer involved as soon as possible, way before you talk to the police, way before they even start coming around. And I know a lot of people who call in, and they actually call in with some serious inquiries. Hey, look, I'm being investigated. What do I do? And it's great that they're interested and they want to talk to me about the situation that they're in. But if the government of the United States of America or the state of Hawaii is investigating you, if they've given you a target letter, if law enforcement's come to your front door, if they've come to your employer and asked, hey, is Joe Smith around? You know that they are looking for you. And so the moment that happens, you have to understand that the government of the United States, the state of Hawaii, law enforcement is building a case against you. They're absolutely building a case against you. And while it's great that you're calling around and looking for lawyers, you're doing absolutely nothing to build a case for yourself, because you can't do it yourself. You can't go out there and do the investigation yourself. You have to hire a professional to go and investigate the case for you, except with the eye towards exoneration. It's no different than if you go into a doctor and you say, hey, doc, I can't move my right arm, or I have a pain in my right arm, right? Most people will say to me, well, when should I get you involved? When should I hire you? Why don't I just see what happens with regard to the investigation? Why don't I just see what happens? Because by the time you see what happens and they've charged you, because they always hope that maybe they won't charge me. Maybe, and for those people who did absolutely nothing wrong, that's a great strategy. If you know that you did absolutely nothing wrong, then absolutely you can wait. Because if you're absolutely 100% innocent, then number one, you wouldn't be calling me as an attorney. But number two, then you have nothing to worry about. It's for those other people who have some liability, who may have been at the wrong place at the wrong time, who might have gotten involved with some things. You have to understand that the government of the United States of America believes that you are guilty. And I'm talking, when I say government of the United States of America, it's because I represent mostly service members against any of the armed forces. But you need to start changing that dynamic, and you need to start investigating using a trained professional. Because no different than, I have a pain in my arm, can you not say, hey, look, I'm going to wait until my arm falls off, or I'm going to wait until I can no longer move my arm before I go to see a real doctor. That might have been okay back in the 1800s in the Wild Wild West, where the doctor was hundreds of miles away, but you wouldn't do that if you had a pain in your arm. You'd go see the doctor and see what they had to say, right? You wouldn't try and self-diagnose. So the sooner you can get a lawyer involved, I know that's a long answer, but oftentimes people need to hear that the government goes after people, and they go after them with reckless abandon. I mean, look at what they're doing to Trump. I don't want to bring politics into this, but it's a great analogy. People like Donald Trump are out of office, and I know he's a very polarizing individual, but they are relentless. They keep going after him and after him and after him. They won't just let it go. And so if they're going to go after a Donald Trump like this, or if they can go after a Donald Trump like this, who's got millions of dollars to pay for his legal defense, what do you think they're going to do to you if they think that you've done something wrong?
Now, people hesitate to call lawyers. And my experience in the immigration field is money. Money, money, money. So they go to consultants, tax preparers, travel agents to do their paperwork. And of course, these people are not professionals. They make mistakes. Sometimes they succeed, but frequently they don't succeed. And it's the difference of a few $100s. But in the criminal law field, maybe it's thousands of dollars that make the difference. So it's money, money, money. And they say, oh, I'll do it myself, I want to save money. But to me, dealing with the law is not about money. It's to protect yourself from jail, or in the immigration field from being denied a visa or being deported. And that's how I've analyzed this in my entire practice. It's always the money involved. And also, people think they're too smart. They're smarter than a third grader, so they can do their own thing. And then when they make a mistake, they go to the lawyer. And of course, as a lawyer, you have to undo the things that they do badly. It's like a tailor. The analogy is like a tailor. The tailor cut your pants too short and threw away the material that he cut.
You're using what happened. That's my You're actually using what happened to me. That's that's what actually happened to me.
Well, it happened to me a number of times, so I don't go to Macy's anymore because the tailor does not understand me. He speaks a different language. So I have my own tailor, Filipina, and she does a very good job of measuring me up, and I pay her less than what I was paying the tailor at Macy's. So
well,
that is the situation.
It's always about money. So the first problem is people hope that the problem goes away. That's the first issue. So if you talk about the barriers to why they don't call an attorney, maybe one of the first ones, it's either they're hoping that the problem just goes away, or they are intimidated, scared, ashamed to talk to a lawyer. I would be more comfortable talking to a lawyer than I would a doctor, because a lawyer is actually bound to keep your confidence. I mean, there's a law, there's the rule of ethics that says that they must keep your confidence. And so you can't be afraid that they're just going to go and talk to their best friend or people across the street. And trust me, people have great stories about their lives and about their cases in general, but I am bound by a rule of ethics that says I cannot repeat the specifics of their story. And yes, we talk about in generalities about some of the things that I represent people for, but that's generalities. And we'll never attribute a specific behavior, conduct to an individual that we represent. We talk about these things for illustrative purposes. But if the first barrier is they're either ashamed to, or they just feel uncomfortable talking to an attorney, let me put your mind at ease, is that if you believe that your story you're going to tell us is the worst that we've ever heard, you're absolutely wrong. We've heard some pretty awful stories in our lives. If the second one is money, any good attorney isn't going to charge you anything to talk to you about the problem, or to just get you oriented on what you can do to fix your problem. But if the barrier is money, like you said, and I think it is, people hope that the problem goes away, is number one. People are afraid to talk to an attorney is number two. And people just don't want to spend the money to hire an attorney because they believe that it's a waste of money. And part of that is also they think that they can do it themselves, just like you said. They think they can do it themselves. And there are certainly things in the law that you can do yourself. If you have a speeding ticket and you are going over the speed limit, and you were not going over the speed limit, or you ran a stop sign that wasn't there, and you can take pictures of it. When I was a high school student, I would go take pictures of a stop sign that wasn't there, and I would show them to the judge. And yet, you can handle that on your own, maybe even a speeding ticket. But when the problem gets to be felony level offenses, when they think that you've done something that is a felony level offense, you can't solve that problem yourself. You can't hope that that goes away. People might want to. In the immediate aftermath of things, they might want to crawl up and hope it goes away. But hope is not a strategy. You have to be proactive about defending yourself and taking your future into your own hands. But if the ultimate problem is that the person who has the problem says, I just don't want to spend the money on this problem. I'm just unwilling to spend any amount of money on the problem, then I mean, there's very little that you can do to help them.
Absolutely. And but I have not found people like that though. They're willing to spend a little amount of money for their problem. I've not seen anybody who doesn't want to spend money at all for their particular situation. They just want to save money. And as I've been saying, there are many ways to save money, but not when it involves you or your so-called loved ones. People say, I love my wife, I love my fiancé, but they won't spend money for them. So how can you claim to love somebody? In the movie Pandora and the Flying Dutchman, James Mason, the Flying Dutchman, told Ava Gardner, who was the leading lady, I love you. And so she asked, what is the measure of one's love? The measure of one's life is what one is willing to do for it. Or in terms of money, the measure of your love for your so-called loved ones is how much you are willing to spend for it. So in this case of criminal law, if you love yourself, how much are you willing to spend for yourself whom you claim you love? Maybe you don't really love yourself. You want to commit legal suicide, as they call it. Legal suicide when you just flaunt the law and don't want to spend anything. And so, as they say in Filipino, bahala na. Bahala na. What's the English for that? I don't know. Bahala na. It's up to fate or it's up to chance. So, I myself, I'm a lawyer. I went to Yale Law School. I studied taxation. Do I do my own taxes? No. I hire a professional. I go to H&R Block. I pay money. I could do it myself probably, but I want to have a third person do it because they are more objective. I could do it. Why not?
I think that's the key that you're looking at right there, is the objectiveness that a lawyer who you hire is actually going to, and the perspective that they're going to give your case. I think that outside observer is key to understanding what to do in a legal problem, because you're absolutely right. You for example, your own children, you're way more strict with discipline on your own children than you would be, say for example, you go to the beach with your kids and the neighbor's kids and somebody else's. If you don't want them to do something and they're all running around in the water but they're going too far away, I do this all the time. I'll yell at my son first. I'll yell at him first and tell him not to do what I want everyone not to do. And I'll use him as the example, because you can yell at your kid, you can be harder on your kid. But I think that you have to be able to have objectivity. And when it comes to your children or when it comes to yourself, you need objectivity in order to be able to address your legal problem correctly, because you will be emotionally involved in whatever issue that you have. If it's a criminal problem, you're going to be scared, you're going to be worried, and you're going to want to not trouble other people. I'll give you a great example. I represent some people out in a criminal case, and it's a young boy. He's not a boy. He's actually a man. He's an adult. But he doesn't earn a lot of money because he just doesn't have the means to earn a lot of money. But when his family found out that he was in legal problems and he had legal troubles, they rallied to him. Now, a lot of people are afraid to go ask their relatives for help. They'd rather go out. The funny thing, I've heard people go out and I'm going to go start a GoFundMe page. I'm going to ask for people to donate money. I commend those people to a certain degree, but they're willing to air out whatever their grievance is on social media and say, I need a GoFundMe page to raise money. But they're unwilling. A lot of people are unwilling to just go to their family, their friends, their loved ones. But in this particular young boy's case, the family was more than willing to contribute, and they were able to raise money, and they were able to get people to help contribute for his legal defense. And if you do that, if you go out there and you just ask, I know that it's a shame. It's shameful to kind of ask for that kind of help. But if you're in legal problems and the state of Hawaii is coming after you, you have to put that shame to the side, because they'll come after you with a vengeance. They won't just let you go.
Oh yeah, people should not be ashamed to ask their relatives or friends for money if they need it, because that's also a test of friendship and being a close relative. If they are willing to help you, if they're not willing to help you, then you scratch them off your friend list or relative list. It's not going to cost you cause shame to you if you ask money from relatives or friends when you are in deep trouble.
Yeah, you better be in deep trouble. If you want to take a cruise to the Bahamas, then no, don't go asking people for money. But if you are in deep legal trouble, there are some people who are very who won't loan you anything, and that's fine. There's no reason to, but you have to understand when you're asking people for money in a legal problem, they should probably understand that they're not loaning you money. That money is gone. If you give money to somebody who has a legal problem or a financial problem, and you're just trying to get them through the particular situation, you're giving out of the generousness of your heart. You have to understand that money is gone. Don't loan money.
That's a donation, a gift.
That's a gift. You should, if you're going to give money, don't say, I'm going to give you a large amount of money and you'll pay me back. Give as much as you possibly can, but that's gone. Just it's like paying a deposit, a security deposit on your apartment that you get. That money, just consider it gone. It's never coming back. If it comes back, great. That's a bonus. He's as good a friend as you were to him in lending him the money if he pays you back. If he doesn't, hey, look, you should not have expected that money to come back to you in the first place. You're giving that away.
I have a friend in the Philippines, Bert Bravo. Flor knows him if they met already. And he's generous to friends. And I went to Russia. I said, I don't have any money to go to Russia. So he gave me $3,000. And when I came back and I got some money, I offered to pay him back, and said, no. God will pay me back. That's why I'm successful, he said. See, he's a multimillionaire because he's generous to people, not expecting a refund or payment from them. So God must be up there taking care of him. And he believes in God, although I've not seen him touch the Bible. I lived with him for a couple of years in an apartment. And he's very generous to people. But don't expect the person to whom you give money to pay you back. That's a donation, and I believe in God, and I went to church yesterday, and I believe that somehow the Almighty will pay you back in some form. Speaking of church, I had to sign a waiver form, 2 pages. We were able to actually go into the church. We went to church 6 feet apart, maybe 7 feet apart, and it's a 2-page legal document. I made a copy. You give up your rights. You give up any claim.
Did a lawyer write it?
Obviously a lawyer.
I don't know. I mean, if it's a lawyer wrote it, then it's probably enforceable.
A
But
lawyer wrote it. And,
you know why? Because churches are so rich that they can give. They'll be the first to be sued.
They would be sued. So you give up your rights. You agree to undergo treatment for any disease, and that you are entering into this waiver.
Did you
freely, voluntarily, and willingly, and that you are assuming the consequences, that they are not forcing you to do it, that, and so I signed it, but I made a copy, and I'm going to analyze it. But
did you have to wear a mask?
oh my goodness, you wear a mask plus a face shield,
Wow.
double, and
They really want to absolve themselves of any liability.
because people like to sue, and who is the best target?
A church.
A church has a lot
Oh,
of
a
money.
church. Yeah, they've got a lot of money. I mean, look at all the donations they take in.
Yeah, they do a lot of
That talk
donation.
about donations. That you're giving that money away.
Yeah.
And see, people give that money away. Half of the people give the money away. I'm going to stop talking about church in a second. But people give that money away expecting that because they're giving that money that they'll get some blessings from God. You don't give that money if you're expecting something. See, that's the thing. If people give money with the expectation of getting something in return, whether it's blessings or it's anything, any expectation of getting anything in return, then you're not really donating. You're not really gifting that money. You are expecting something, even if it's just good karma. Don't expect anything. There's half the people that are expecting something, and half the people are actually just really giving it away. I don't know if there's any real difference between what happens, but if you're donating to the church, I guess that's what funds a lot of the properties, getting property taxes.
I don't give.
Oh, not taxes. They're exempt companies.
I don't give money to the church expecting some blessings from God.
Oh no, but most people do. That they're putting
give.
money in there, expecting.
No, I give to help the ministers to maintain the church and do other things. Why do I invite people to eat at Max's or some restaurant? Yesterday I invited a well-known politician. I will not name the person. With some friends, I paid for it. What do I get from it? I will be appointed when the politician achieves power? No. I may be dead by the time the politician. But I like to entertain people, see them smile, enjoy a good meal, and maybe God will bless me, but maybe not. We are never sure if there is an Almighty, but just pray and hope that you will be blessed and you will not encounter any accident on the road to KNDI and going home. But giving to others, I find joy in giving to others. Sometimes I give my services for free. There's a girl, member of our church, she was fooled by a man, and she's now under deportation. They say the marriage is not bona fide, but the man is dead already, so I cannot testify against her. But yes, there are people who are generous, and there are people who are stingy. And I know some rich people in Hawaii who are stingy, and I know some who are generous. So, people who have no money to defend themselves in a criminal case or for immigration purposes, approach your relatives or friends, or talk to me, and let's see how we can fund your petition.
We were talking about Hawaii, and as liberal as Hawaii can be with regard to politics, the one thing that we love about Hawaii is that they will still always be patriots. They're not going to defund the police. They're not going to. There's not going to be Antifa. There's not going to be all those riots. They're patriots at heart here in Hawaii, regardless of whether or not they're liberal or they're conservative. They're still going to be patriots, and that's what we love about Hawaii. But I do not understand why we still have these mask mandates, regardless of what the situation is. It's almost as if the leaders in Hawaii, before they act, it's more like they react. Before they act, they have to look around. What's California doing? What are they doing in Washington D.C.? Am I going to get canceled? You're one term. Isn't the governor one term? The governor one term.
Two
right?
term.
Is 2 terms? Oh well, then maybe that's why. But
his term is ending.
this is on his second term. Why do you keep looking other places?
Yeah.
I mean, the sad thing is the governor is going to enter the private sector in a few years when his term is up. Who is going to ever want this person to be on their side or to hire him? No, the governor right now, when he leaves politics or he leaves the governor's office, he better stay in some sort of elected office. He better stay in politics. He better get a government job. He better not enter the private sector where someone has to hire him. I mean, wait a minute. Weren't you that guy who couldn't make a decision? Weren't you that guy who couldn't just act? Who was indecisive, was unclear, and everything it depended on what California did or what what was popular or unpopular. I mean, it's the notion of we're just following suit. We're one of 4 states that still requires an indoor mask mandate. And despite the fact that the CDC said there hasn't been a documented case of anybody catching the coronavirus by casual encounters outdoors passing on the street, we kept the outdoor mask mandate up until the day before yesterday. Yesterday was the first day where there was no outdoor mask mandate.
Oh, they're still there.
But you still see them. You still see these sheep
there.
going around out there wearing the mask.
They're still wearing the mask.
As if...
But the visitors are not. You go to Waikiki Beach or Kailua Beach.
And then they'll... Yeah, I know what they're going to...
Masks.
They're going to blame the visitors. They brought us coronavirus. Look, the people who didn't have the mask on outside, it was as if they were set free from jail. It was as if they had thrown off some shackles and were able to wander the streets freely. I mean, just taking off the mask and being a normal human. Look, I actually believe that the mask does probably work. I mean, I've gone through an entire... I usually get the cold or a flu at least 3 or 4 times every year. I got it once this year. It was once. So, I mean, I guess maybe it was because my kids didn't go to school and they didn't get it from other kids, or we were wearing the mask. I don't know. Social distancing with it. I mean, it does. It doesn't transmit. But outdoors, walking around in casual, even indoors, if you're sick, don't go into the office. Don't start touching everything. It's all the same things that we've known throughout our entire lives, but we've just gotten lazy with. This is the one silver lining that it's taught us to be a little bit more hygienic. But the mask mandate, it's like freedom. Freedom. We're set free.
My feeling is if the coronavirus is going to kill you, mask or no mask, is going to kill you. The coronavirus cannot distinguish between a mask and an unmasked person.
Right? Do you see the people who have the thing pulled up?
So in church yesterday, my friend could not keep on the mask for an hour, so he went out, and I was about to leave too because I was sneezing. You know, in a mask, you are breathing the same foul air that came from you. So I don't see the point in wearing a mask. But,
yeah, if you're sick, stay home.
But people are afraid to die. I'm ready to go anytime.
Oh, not me. No.
People who are maybe they have many things to do yet, but
I think that it's regrets, the things that they didn't do in life.
At 88, I'm ready to go anytime. But my fear is whenever I go to the tunnel, like in Pali Highway, I pray that not here, Lord, not in the tunnel. I don't want to suffocate. Suffocation.
Yeah, I guess there are certain places that you don't want to go.
I don't want to fall off a cliff. So I pray. I pray every day, and before going to the tunnel, I pray, and after coming out of the tunnel, I thank the Lord that I did not die inside the tunnel. And Leaky Tunnel is.
Oh, that's a long one.
It's more scary.
I don't like that
For
one.
me, I don't like to go there. I'd rather go around H3 or Pali Highway. At least in Pali Highway, you can see the end of the tunnel.
Yeah.
It's short. So, but I pray, and so far God has been kind to me. But you gotta be ready.
You have to have your affairs in order and be ready to go.
Be ready. I have my things. I have boxes at home. I have marked there if I die, so you know what to do. I have 2 boxes.
Is your house still clean? Yeah, I saw the pictures.
Yeah,
Is it still, or did you bring the boxes back in?
I cleaned the house. I have an appraiser. They appraise it for more than what we expected. So it's good. I could sell the house and
No, don't. So that's your investment property.
Make money. Go back to the Philippines.
Why does everyone want to go back to the Philippines? Enough with that going back to the Philippines. It's better here. You have the same weather here. It's better. It's not as humid as long. Look, in April, by now in the Philippines, if you were in the Philippines right now, it would be so humid. You complain about this humidity now?
A lot of people want to go back to the Philippines. They hesitate because they are ashamed that when they go back, that they are considered a failure. Of course, when you are old, like me, they think you are going there to retire.
But that's the
if
dream.
If you are in your 50s and you go back, hey, maybe you were deported or you didn't do well. But if you have a $1,000 pension and you go back to the village, that's a lot of money. It's 50,000 pesos. Oh, you'll have a comfortable life in the province if you have your home.
But talk about going back to the Philippines. Talk about the government being involved in your life. The Philippines.
Oh, it's less.
You think that it's less in the Philippines?
Less involvement of the government here. They interfere with everything you do. And anyway, the next president might be Bongbong Marcos. So I said, Bongbong, you can talk to him.
Why would now talk about someone who should retire? I think that he should he should hang it up. He should go. He doesn't need to.
Fighting and fighting.
But I do want to talk about. I want to talk about the government being involved in our lives because I want to circle back to that whole notion of it goes in part with when you should get a lawyer involved in your case, and then why it's important to not back down off of your protecting your rights, because the government, like we had said earlier, is hell-bent on getting you. They are hell-bent on controlling your life, and they're hell-bent on winning. And I'll give you an example. Do you remember when I went to Washington, D.C. Back in early April?
Yeah, you had a case there.
I had a case. And this is a great example of why what the government does to just stay in control of your life and never give up. And that's why you should never give up if you're fighting against the government. So this all stems back from a case that involved a man who was convicted at a court-martial. He had originally called the office and decided not to hire us because he had the senior defense counsel to represent him. And the senior defense counsel in the Navy is the most senior guy, defense lawyer in his region representing him. And he said, well, I've got the most senior guy. He's a lieutenant commander. He knows what he's doing. He's going to represent me great. He did a fair job. I'm not going to knock him. He did a fair job in representing him. But he was ultimately convicted and sentenced to 39 years in jail.
Wow.
At this point, now, he calls again, and I think it's his father who calls and says, I need your help. I need to appeal my son's case. He was convicted. I know we didn't go to you in the first place, but he was convicted. He got 39 years in jail. He's currently at Fort Leavenworth. I said, my goodness. Well, I'm sorry to hear that, sir. But yeah, let's talk about this. I'm familiar with a little bit of the facts. And he brought us on board to appeal the case. We briefed the case, and that's just how it goes. It takes a while. He's been in jail for a long time now, a few years. I believe wrongly convicted. So we appeal the case. It goes up to the appellate courts, which is the Navy and Marine Corps Court of Criminal Appeals. They ask the government for briefing, we reply brief, and then they order oral argument where you go in front of the panel of 3 judges and you present your oral argument. You've done it into the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals as well. So you present your oral argument and those 3 judges make a decision. And let me tell you about how relentless the government is. We filed our briefing and it was clear that we were going to win the case. It was clear. The issue was clear. They put a juror on the case that shouldn't have been there, and I argued the case. They came up and they put an argument forward that really was not convincing and not persuasive. But usually, after you submit the case, it takes months, if not years, for the appellate courts to actually decide the case. They came back within a few weeks, and they overturned the conviction, set aside the conviction, and he was, in my opinion, exonerated. It was like one of those feelings where it's one of those exoneration cases where you're fighting for someone on appeal, and you know that he's right, you know that he was wrongly convicted, and the appellate court finally exonerates him, and they say you're set free, your charges have been dismissed. Now the problem is that what he gets is a new trial. He doesn't get to go free. But if we had lost, we would get to appeal to the next higher court. But the next higher court, they get discretion. They don't have to take our case. But I'll tell you how relentless the government is, and why you should never give up, and why you should always keep fighting. The government here in this case, even though they lost fair and square, the decision was 3-0 to set aside the conviction and to dismiss the case. The government is now appealing the case because they lost. And so they're asking the JAG, the Judge Advocate General of the Navy, to certify this issue so that the next appellate court will hear the case and hopefully reverse the lower court. So he was convicted in the trial court. We appealed it. We won fair and square. 3-0. 3 judges, 2 Navy, 1 Marine officer, voted 3-0 to reverse the conviction, set aside it, and I called the father. Congratulations, we won. He should be released from jail. They're just going to do some administrative things. They'll send him back to his unit, and everything, we're going to start from fresh. Everything will be as if he was never charged in the first place. Before that happened, I did warn him. The government could appeal. And no kidding, the government appealed their loss. They lost fair and square, and they appealed it anyway, or they're trying to appeal it. So just today was recently the opposition to that certification was due today. And that is just how I don't know how it's going to turn out. I think that I understand the legal issues. I think we're going to win. Sometimes I welcome them to appeal it up to the next higher court, because now I get to hear 5 judges say that I've won instead of just 3. So it'll be a vote of, what is that, 8-0 instead of just a 3-0 vote. But it's just unbelievable how much the government does not want to give up, how much of a sore loser they are, that they are going to continue trying to appeal, even though we won this case and we've demonstrated that our client should be exonerated.
Let me give you an example also of relentless pursuit of injustice. There's a guy who was convicted of alleged sexual assault on a minor. And afterwards, he was placed in deportation, because one of the grounds for deportation is sexual assault of a minor. And I defended him and asked for cancellation of removal. That's the only relief that's available, that you have to admit that he was convicted. But on the other hand, this guy has 8 of the good factors favorable to him. He has a home, he has a wife, children, family, he has a job, he has bank accounts, and otherwise he's a good citizen. The only adverse factor is that he was convicted. So the judge said he wanted to question him. And I said, I could not directly object. I said, I did not prepare him, so I was concerned that he would bungle the case. So I told the judge, there's no need to question him, Your Honor, because he has been convicted. We are only seeking relief, and we believe we are entitled to relief. And the judge said, I want to know the truth. Okay, you want to know the truth. So he questioned the guy directly, and did you or did you not touch this girl? And he said, no, I did not. And so why did they charge you? He said, I don't know. And you were convicted by a 12-man jury panel. Did you testify in the case? He said, no. I said, why not? The judge asked. Well, I believe, and my lawyer believed, that the evidence was insufficient to establish that I am guilty. And so the judge said, okay, I've heard enough. I congratulate you. I set you free. Please go back to your family. And I order the Immigration and Customs Enforcement to release you today. So we won the case. And what does the government do? They appeal. They say the judge abused his discretion. How can they 90% of the time the government wins, and now that they lose, they say the judge abused his discretion. But abuse of discretion is not the test for an appeal by any party. It is clear error, and they have not established that. So now my brief is due in the Court of Appeals next month. I asked for an extension, and I don't know how the Court of Appeals will react. But I'm challenging also the constitutionality of the law, because what is child abuse? What is abuse? I mean, abuse to you may not be abuse to some other person. When you abuse, it's
and that's one of those definitions. It's one of those terms they don't further define. Child abuse. The word abuse.
You kick your dog so many times, that's abuse. But if you kick your dog once, maybe that's not abuse. So it's vague. And there's a doctrine that in case the law is vague, it should favor the alien. So that shows that the government will go after you. They're not going to stop. Why? Because it does not cost the government money.
Oh, we have to be careful with that. I know we're going to be. I don't know. We're going to place this video. You have to be careful with using the word alien. You know the liberals don't like the word alien. So that was just a throwback to an old term. I know you've been doing immigration law for a long time. I make a joke of this. It's in jest because
they don't want to call you.
They don't want to
people alien. Yeah. What are you going to do? You're going to change the law. All the words in the statutes with the word alien. You're going to change your alien number. What are they going to use? Your non-citizen number. I don't know why they.
Yeah, isn't it an A number? They called it an A number.
They call it an A number. So with the NC number.
Well, what's the move to now? What are they changing it to? Is it non-citizen?
They say the word alien means somebody from space, extraterrestrial creature that is the alien, but a human being is not an alien. So, but that has been the word used since America was free from colonial rule. So I don't know.
So yeah, don't cancel us out there. It was just a throwback to an old term. We use these old terms. You're so used to it. So, but that's what happens.
So the government is going after you, and in fact, I was going to talk about the government nitpicking all these petitions just to get rid of you as an alien.
That's something we should save that. We should save that for the next time.
Yeah.
We should save that for the next time. I know we've certainly talked about a lot of issues. I don't know why I keep bringing it back to the mask mandate and the government coming after you and the nitpicking, but that's...
The government is going after you. The government is not your friend. It's the enemy. USCIS means U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Disservice. They are after you, and I know it because I work for the government. In case of doubt, they're going to deny your petition. So how are you going to prevent them from denying? You hire a good lawyer who knows what they're looking for.
You know
I know what they're looking for.
You know your children. You sometimes your children are smarter than you think they are. You say that, and I was having a comment. I was talking to the kids the other day, and they said the exact same thing because we were talking about the mask mandate and they wanted to know what's the rules. Can I wear it here? Can I wear it there? And I said, well, the government is trying. Why is it bad to have to wear the mask? I say it's not bad, but it's just another form of it's just another way that the government is trying to control our lives, and it is there to set rules and regulations. But ultimately, you should have as little rules and regulations as humanly possible. You should just be free, because the government is trying to run our lives, and they had a very poignant point to me. They said, well, Dad, didn't you work for the government for a while? I forgot that being in the Marine Corps was me working for the government, but yes, I did. I worked for the government for 10 years, just 10 years of my life, until I realized that you're absolutely right. Not that there's anything wrong. I mean, I miss the Marines dearly. The Marine Corps, the Marine Corps will go on without us. But the Marines are the ones I miss. But yeah, I worked for the government for a long time, and yeah, you're right. They are. That's all they want to do is control your life. I get it. You're in the military. They want to control your life. But it's everyday citizens they want to control. I think that all of these things are just them setting us up to be more and more dependent on the government for everything.
So don't worry about the money, Apo. You talk to a lawyer and see whether you can afford the rate.
Here's what I say. Look, if it's
talk to me, talk to Noel. How much is your fee for this sort of thing? But please do not ask me, because I will consider it an insult if you say, where will I get the money? Because if I know where to get the money, then I don't need you. I'll go direct to the place where they give money. So do not because Filipinos have a tendency to say, you quote a price and say, pangalaak, where will I get the money? To me, that is an insult, because if a white lawyer asks you that, if a white lawyer gives you a quotation, you never answer the white lawyer like that. So to me, it is an insult when you say, pangalaak, where will I get the money?
It's as if what they're saying is, you are not worth the money. Right? Where will I get the money for that? It's because, here's why, right? If they want to buy a car, you don't go give the Mercedes-Benz, and a lot of these people drive Mercedes-Benzes, you're not going to give the Mercedes-Benz dealer $60,000, $70,000 right there. You borrow it. You're not going, when you go buy a house, if it's important to you, you'll put it on credit. So I understand where you're coming from. Where will I get the money? Yeah, it's like if they're saying you're not worth me giving you that money.
I don't like the tenor of that remark. Where will I get the money? As if you're asking a lot of money, or.
Well, we are. I mean, but it's you're turning. Here's the thing that you're like with the gentleman who's being deported. I mean, maybe you shouldn't mind going back to the Philippines, but being separated from your family, you are taking this person's problem that he got himself into, and you're making it your problem. You're setting aside your time with the grandchildren, going to the beach, relaxing, doing your hobby, whatever the case may be, and you're turning his problem into your problem. And while that's the profession I chose to do, it doesn't come without some sort of sacrifice, and it has to be a two-way street. I mean, I fight for these guys, but they better want to fight for themselves. I don't like fighting for people who don't want to fight. So.
Oh, these people are fighting. The wife is fighting.
Oh, they're fighters. No, I know these people. Yeah. They're fighters. They want to fight to the bitter end.
They freely give the money, and they do not raise questions. If we have to go to the Supreme Court on the issue of whether child abuse is vague or not, I'd like to go to the Supreme Court, and I will talk to these justices without notes, like I did in the Court of Appeals 9. I went to the Court of Appeals 9, and I said, I didn't bring any notes, Your Honor. I'll speak from the heart. Will you allow me to do so?
And you have just heard the Tipon Report with the father and son team, Al and Noel Tipon. Here on KNDI 1270 AM. It's 9:20. On with the show.